when people masturbate. It changes their perception of pleasure, and it is almost like drugs. So they prefer the pleasure from masturbation, and because it changes the brain to an extent that it can become addictive as much as smoking and drugs become addictive. So, and it actually can be brought into marriage. That's why in our courses that we do, lately we have been getting questions from people on the permissibility of mutual masturbation. People are asking these questions because it seems that they have also get onto the bandwagon of pornography and
So it
masturbation.
shows how bad situation is. And I think in our book, we mentioned that it is allowable based on the lesser of two evil. Yeah. But now, in view of the current trend of people watching pornography and then masturbating, I think we need to have a caveat that, in the first place, they shouldn't be watching pornography because it really arouses them
Because
to the
this is
point.
different from the cases where for months you have been disciplined, but once in a while you just feel that urge, and this is where the
Yes.
Fiqh comes into play.
Yes.
This is where some of the scholars say that if you had not masturbated, it would have led to zina.
Yes.
Then it is mubah, neutral. When the masturbation has become a habit, you cannot use this
And
ruling.
because of pornography
And also
watching
because of pornography, you cannot use
Yes.
this ruling. You say
anymore.
the scholars say mubah, so I can. So it doesn't apply to you
Yeah,
anymore.
because the overriding principle is that you need to attend to the pornography watching and how do you have to stop that. And the most popular question that we get every time.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to our podcast number 3.
Today we are going to discuss chapter 3 of our book, Rulings and Etiquettes of Sex. So I felt that chapter 3 is a bit different from the other chapters because it talks more about the Fiqh point of view where sexual relationship is concerned.
However, even though we talk about the Fiqh, what we wanted to do in this chapter is to bring readers' attention to the aspect of akhlaq, which is behind every fiqh ruling and regulations that you can find in Islam.
Okay, initially we wanted to put it in the appendix because we felt that topics on the halal and haram in sexuality had been written extensively and there are many books on it. But then our publisher felt that it would be better placed as a chapter. Yeah.
But as a whole, in the scheme of the book, the chapter 1 is about the aqidah of sex. Chapter 3 and chapter 2 and chapter 3 is about the sharia of sex, and chapter 4 will be about the akhlaq of sex. Yeah.
Right. So typically in any issue about the fiqh or sharia in Islam, we have divided them into the obligatory, the wajib, the sunnah, the haram, the makruh, and the mubah. For this podcast, we want to focus on the haram and the wajib because the other three is you can just look at it from the book. So this is from page 79 to page 100 of our book. Why do we have rulings in sexual relationship? What is the purpose of rulings?
I think rulings are meant to be minimum standards, meaning in cases where a violation happens. Like for example, they are married, but the husband refused to have relations because she got girlfriends, for example. So that can be used as a basis for divorce, for example, if the wife wants a divorce. So vice versa, the same thing. So rulings are only useful when in terms where justice have to be meted out. Judges will take into account in the compensation for divorce. Sometimes husband have to compensate the wife. Sometimes the wife have to compensate the husband. Right? It depends on the judge's decision. And so the ruling on sex will come into play. But it is not productive when we start to use the ruling as a basis of your relationship. It is not meant to be, actually. Yeah.
So I understand that the rulings in such a private and intimate matter for us is meant to set the boundary and perimeter for couples to navigate, and that it sets the minimum standard that is considered transgress and that we need to address and really ask for help.
So if the violation of ruling leads to asking for help, that is what the Sharia is intended to be. Rather than, it leads to
Argument. Yeah, it's like minimum wage kind of thing lah. So we start with the first ruling. When is sex wajib?
So in principle, sex becomes wajib at the point where we get married, because in general, it becomes a duty to each spouse to satisfy each other's sexual needs. Yeah. However, as we have belabored at length in chapter 2, we should be looking at our responsibility more than your spouse's responsibility, because when you start demanding the other party's responsibility, that is when friction and disagreement and unhappiness will take place. So when we look into our responsibility as a husband, the principle of nafkah, it includes financial nafkah, but it also includes non-material nafkah. And our scholars have said that it includes her sexual needs. And to the wife, the reminder that we had belabored in podcast number 2 is to be sensitive to men's outright readiness for sex. So if both parties are mindful of their responsibility, then they will be going all out to please each other, and that is when mutual bliss starts to happen. Yeah. So as far as this wajib thing is concerned, the ruling is like that. But in counselling experience, we notice that people going for their rights, that is the beginning of friction. So the wajib part should be taken as a minimum reminder that this is what we have to do for each other. To be blissful, we should be looking at the beautiful things about the sexual relationship, the enticement, the attraction, being attentive, empathic, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
As a counselor, as a person who's more adept to human relationship, how would...
I think we discussed last time that sometimes wife may not be in the mood or maybe too tired and were handling a lot of household chores and things to do. And I can imagine this can be frustrating for the husband, especially if he has high sexual needs. So some of the hacks or advice I explain to my client is that if you are not able to fulfill them sexually, in terms of genital sex, there are many other ways to pleasure or soothe your husband. And we mentioned this before, the part about a sensual massage. So I taught my clients, like, you can explain to the husband, oh, I don't feel in the mood. Can I just help you to relax and put you to sleep? So this will entail like massaging their body all over, all parts of their body, including the genital region, in a very gentle way that will help them just be lulled to sleep. I think in one of our YouTube video, we actually demonstrate how to do this. So do check it out. The one on touch sensuality. So do check it out.
I suppose I know what comes to many people's mind would be, that is when you start massaging, that is the way towards getting towards arousing. Actually, it's not true, because when we read sex therapists, when they handle erectile dysfunction, one of the exercises that they have to do is, they call it love play, and it's like what just described, similar.
Yes, yeah.
And so some of the therapists reported in their books that sometimes the couple will come back and say that it is something wrong with the exercise because the husband fell to sleep. So the therapist had to explain that actually it's good development, because it shows that the husband can relax, can be comfortable in the presence of the wife's touches, because it is not to be taken for granted that couples will always be comfortable. No. One of the reasons why erectile dysfunction happens is actually couples are not comfortable with each other, and because of that, the normal processes of the men have been curtailed. Yeah, and besides, if you think about it, the reason why genital or bodily sensuality arouse is because you entertain it. For example, the wife start touching the husband. You notice the husband reciprocate, and then both of them increase in the intensity and the intimacy of the touching. That's how the erotic feelings evoked. But if you have the intention to purely enjoy the sensuality, when you experience the build-up, you can use techniques are like yoga techniques. You take deep breath to focus your mind on the sensuality itself rather than the eroticity. This kind of massage can actually bring you to sleep. That's why a lot of people in spa sleep.
But this will require the husband to really be okay that he's not having sex that night.
Genital sex.
Yes. and that there is a compassion, you know, a kindness in him to say, okay, I'm okay for her to just lull me to sleep. If he's angry or irritated or like feel that
Not
he's
cooperating.
being shortchanged and he doesn't cooperate, then it won't work.
Then you won't work. Yeah.
Yep. But this is a suggestion of techniques that we use during our counseling, what we call love play. And it's actually taught by quite a number of sex therapists also. Yeah. So the other thing about makro, mubah or sunnah, I think you can get from the book or just online also. So what other hot topic or hot button issue do you want to discuss? Oral sex,
What's next in the
masturbation.
masturbation? Oh, we can discuss masturbation. Why not?
Okay, masturbation. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the
So
stand
yeah,
of about
actually
masturbation?
among the new modern sexual shenanigans that we discuss in the book, masturbation actually we didn't discuss a lot. We had long comments on oral sex, on BDSM, but it's more because of our experience. We were not too exposed on how masturbation has been abused. But since the publication of the book, we have made friends with porn addict specialists, and they highlighted that actually masturbation goes hand in hand with pornography. A lot of this didn't go to the book, but we can discuss about it.
Right,
And I think
right.
the more reason why
I,
we should be
I think it's
discussing in
because
this
when we
podcast.
wrote, I think it's because when we wrote the book 12 years ago, this
Mm.
wasn't so prevalent.
Maybe
It is
pornography also was
something,
not that easy
yeah,
to
not
get.
so
Maybe, yeah.
accessible. Yeah.
When it comes to masturbation, I think it is more productive if Muslims try to understand the harmful effect of masturbation. So in our experience with people like Zubair Ibrahim and Brother Muhammad Ali in Pakistan, so they make it clear to us that actually there's something that happens to the prefrontal cortex of the brain when people masturbate. It changes their perception of pleasure, and it is almost like drugs. So they prefer the pleasure from masturbation, and because it changes the brain to an extent that it can become addictive as much as smoking and drugs become addictive. So, and it actually can be brought into marriage. That's why in our courses that we do, lately we have been getting questions from people on the permissibility of mutual masturbation. People are asking these questions because it seems that they have also get onto the bandwagon of pornography and
So it
masturbation.
shows how bad the situation is. And I think in our book, we mentioned that it is allowable based on the lesser of two evil. Yeah. But now, in view of the current trend of people watching pornography and then masturbating, I think we need to have a caveat that, you know, in the first place, you shouldn't be watching pornography because it really arouses them
Because
to the
this is
point.
different from the cases where for months you have been disciplined, but once in a while you just feel that urge, and this is where the
Yes.
Fiqh comes into play.
Yes.
This is where some of the scholars say that if you had not masturbated, it would have led to zina.
Yes.
Then it is mubah, neutral. When the masturbation has become a habit, you cannot use this ruling.
And because of pornography
And also
watching
because of pornography, you cannot
Yes.
use this ruling. You say
anymore.
the scholars say mubah, so I can. So it doesn't apply to you
Yeah,
anymore.
because the overriding principle is that you need to attend to the pornography watching and how do you have to stop that. And the most popular question that we get every time when we go for any talks, both online and offline, is oral sex. Okay. We had some YouTube video on this also, but I think we will just summarize and repeat here. Yes,
So,
what is the stand?
no, actually, as far as the stand is concerned, I think we have explained it clearly in the book and also in our videos. In our book, I've also quoted Imam Yusuf Qardawi. I've given you the link if you really want to check in an interview. He mentioned that he personally uncomfortable about it, but he personally also can't dare to say that it is haram, because the Prophet had never said that it is haram. Because the principle in fiqh, everything is considered halal unless otherwise specified as haram by the Prophet or by Allah SWT or by any other means of conclusion. But in this case, no such conclusion can be made. However, we have got a lot of comments and questions from women indicating that they have been pressured by their husbands to have oral sex, which is not acceptable because it is halal. But it is like eating ice cream, eating durian, eating caviar. It is halal. But you cannot argue that because it is halal, so to be a good Muslim, you must celebrate the halalness of eating ice cream, for example. So you guilt trip your wife to perform it on you just because it is halal. It is not a valid argument. Besides, in the book, we have also mentioned that it is only halal if you can do a few things. Like, for example, you can avoid the najas, and we have discussed the nitty-gritties of it in the book. And that the other party must be willing to do it. The consent must be there. And that there is no harm. Because actually, oral sex is not completely harmless. Yeast is a form of infection which is well known to happen due to oral sex. It is actually a bacterial infection. It's not what we consider sexually transmitted diseases because it's not a disease, actually, just an infection. Because your mouth can be full of bacteria after especially you don't keep your oral hygiene. Yeah. So it can transfer to other parts of the body. So it can also transfer to the partner. So if a spouse dislike oral sex because of previous experience with this, or for any other reason that he or she doesn't like, this cannot be forced onto the spouse. Yeah.
I think the basic principle is that there must be mutuality. Both party must be keen to do it. Yeah. I was just wondering and really thinking very hard, why is this becoming so popular, and I feel that a lot of women are pressured to do it. And I can't help but think about what kind of messaging do we get from the media, social media, online, or even from from Netflix, and most of this movie would portray oral sex as something normal that you do. And I think that colors how people see it, and they lost the meaning of the sexual relationship, which is actually to be able to give pleasure to each other when both are interested, not when one party are interested, when one party saw something and want to try it out. And this is also a cause of conflict, at the very least a cause of unhappiness from especially the wife. Yeah. And remember, you said that it is halal, but it is not wajib.
So actually, oral sex is not unknown to earlier century Muslims. Like, for example, in the book, we also gave you reference to the book written by 17th century Imam Murtaza, and he described part and parcel of the preparation toward the making is kissing, and when he described kissing is not only on the mouth. It goes to the chest. It goes to the loin region, meaning private regions. Yeah, but the way he presented is like an extension of the sensual pleasuring that couples do to each other. And when it is sensual pleasuring, that means it's mutual. Both parties want to do it. So he doesn't have to describe to what extent you do. So that is also a form of oral sex, only that they have never called it oral sex. Even in Arabic, Juma' al-Safawi, during that time, they never used this term. Whereas today we know of oral sex through the images that we see, that we being naughty, and we see, and we see that, and then we feel that as if we miss out, we don't
that
do
is
it.
the one we must copy.
Yeah,
Yeah. Fear of missing out somewhat.
yeah. I really like to impress on husbands that it is actually not kind to be pressuring wife. I've this story. I know it sounds a bit gross, but I think it makes a very good point. I saw this reel.
Oh, yeah.
I saw this reel. I thought it's a very cute reel.
All right.
Very accurate. So the wife came. The husband was watching TV. So the wife came and sat with a carrot or cucumber. Then he just squeeze the husband's mouth, put in the cucumber, and then he start doing like that. And the husband was like, what are you doing? Something like that. Then the wife take out the cucumber and just look at him and say, nothing. I just want you to understand how it felt for me last night.
Yeah.
So husbands, once in a while, you dreaming about this thing, think about the other party. Is it really enjoyable for the other party? And also, actually, is it really enjoyable for you, or is it because other people are doing it and you don't want to miss out? And then at the same time, you lose the intimacy because you are forcing it on others.
This whole issue is about people really do not know how to spice up and pleasure each other than doing kinky sex or having.
Oral sex is actually overrated, and sensuality actually is underrated. I know that when we talk about other forms of sensuality, touching, massage, people say, this is nothing compared to oral sex. I feel that the reason why people have to go into oral sex and other forms of kinky sex is because they do not want to invest their time in connecting at the emotional, at the sensual, and at the spiritual level, because something is missing. So they are relying on capacity of their genitals to give them the kick. So they try all sorts of things in order to get that kick. Apparently, there are people who classify sex as vanilla sex and kinky sex. The vanilla sex is low grade, tame. In the book, we have already discussed examples of kinky sex like a threesome, role play, sex toys. So these are things which
Current trend.
so we discussed the hukum, but I think what's more important, what we contribute more in the book is how the wisdom behind this hukum, why doing these things can have an effect on your relationship. It is as important as knowing the hukum. So you can read it in the book.
Alright, so we will pick up the most, I think, interesting, which is BDSM.
BDSM stands for.
Bondage, dominance, sadism, and masochism.
So this is what we said earlier lah, that people need to stretch the capacity of their sexual organ, but also their sexual physiology. Well, it's the same thing with oral sex. There is no black and white, because BDSM itself is a big range. But the general genre of BDSM is the use of bodily harm to extend the experience of the body.
The body and also emotionally, psychologically.
To coincide with the pleasure that they can get from a sexual relationship. Example would be if you have seen movies, sometimes detective movies, sometimes murder story, and you find that the murdered actually handcuffed to the bed and naked, and so when you look at it, then you're wondering what is happening. That is part and parcel of BDSM, and sometimes it can lead to death because they stretch their experience to the point of harming the body.
I think underlying it, or the core issue, is that people want to be excited, stimulated, to be turned on before they have sexual relationship. Before, during, before and during. But I suspect the pornography addiction will actually make normal sex lame and not interesting, and therefore there will be a stronger need to do all this to heighten their senses and get more stimulated. So this is one way that pornography affect the couple's sexual relationship. Other than how it affect you as an individual, as a couple, you may find difficult to connect to a human, to be able to have pleasure with somebody, because what you see visually is too stimulating.
These are not scare tactics. These are not scare.
Or not that we're being puddish or anything like that.
There is a science behind it, and it's about the prefrontal cortex of the brain. It actually changes the structure of the brain to prefer this kind of excitement over the normal. So the ruling is based on this hadith: do not inflict harm onto yourself or onto others. So if the genre of BDSM that you're doing involve bodily injury purposefully,
Psychological also. Because sometimes it's very degrading.
like for example, the actor David Carradine was into BDSM, and his genre was asphyxiation, orgasm with strangling, and it got too much. He died. So because of that, this genres of BDSM is haram. So it's not the same with. I know there are dangers all over. Like for example, you go hot air balloon. If you go hot air balloon, it's also danger. But all these are actually calculated risk. Like hot air balloon, for example, like you use fire, and so before you use fire, you have to understand the fire, know the dangers, and you take precautions. It's not the same with enjoying the fire itself. Like for example, burning purposefully. As an activity, you burn and you. that kind of enjoyment is haram in Islam. But hot air balloon, for example, or scuba diving, even skydiving, it's not necessarily haram unless you do it without instruction. That is haram. But if you do with instruction, with instructor who know the risk, it is mubah lah. It is legally neutral. But BDSM is not about controlling the harm, but rather using the harm to be part and parcel of the experience.
Yeah, the enjoyment to excite.
But we also mentioned earlier on that BDSM is a wide range. The BDSM proponents would say that if you were to tie your spouse with silk scarves onto the bed and instruct her not to do anything, but to fully experience and savor the kind of pleasuring that you do to her, they would say that is also a form of BDSM because you relinquish your power. So to Muslims, us Muslims, it doesn't matter what you call it. That one, even if they call it BDSM, there's no danger. We don't see any element of danger actually. Because even the tying is silk scarf. If it is handcuff with the key being thrown away, or that is really asking for danger. But in this kind of thing, even if they call it BDSM, as far as the ruling is concerned, if it doesn't involve harm, and in this case you relinquish your responsibility to reciprocate, it could heighten your experience. And if it is a gift given to you by your spouse, it is valid. It is as valid as.
Yeah, so the principle is that there's no harm, no degrading, no harm physically, emotionally, psychologically, no pressure. It's something that it's actually the end is about the giving of pleasure to each other instead of pressure.
So the overall message that we want to give is that we should go beyond the labels, whether it is oral sex or BDSM or I don't know what else. If you were to look for the hukum for this and that based on these labels, it's very difficult to find. But you have to look at how it is performed. The Fiqh ruling has been known.
So any last thought on this chapter?
From my part, what we would like to impress on readers is the need to go beyond the fiqh of sex. In fact, to go beyond the fiqh of anything, the fiqh of salat, the fiqh of fasting, so on and so forth. I'm not saying abandon fiqh. You must understand the fiqh, and then you must look into the wisdom behind the fiqh. And as far as sex is concerned, the wisdom behind the rulings of sex is about relationship. And you like it or you don't like it, at the end of the day, if you find that the fiqh does not solve your relationship problem, you have to go to relationship gurus rather than fiqh gurus. Yeah, and this would be like marital counselors or sex therapists, or at the least, if you have a respectable, wise elder or even relative.
Who you trust can be can keep it confidential.
And both of you must do it. It's not fair only one party.
And can be neutral on this matter lah. Yeah. My thoughts on this chapter is that it's a bit dry because of the hukum, but I was debating whether do we want to go into all this detail when I first saw the draft from Osman, but I felt now that knowing how people are really searching for things to spice up their life, then we really need to talk about things lah. Initially, I was surprised when you have kinky sex, threesome and all that, but I realized people will do all sorts of things to fulfill their sexual needs, and that as far as possible, if we can provide them some perimeter and guidance, we hope that will be helpful for them lah. Not only in this world but also in the hereafter. So we also talk about whether threesome, sex toys, and role play are permissible. So it's just check it out in the book. Alright, thank you for listening. And this is fast. Actually, we are doing this in fasting month. We wish for all the Muslim have a good breakfast, and may this Ramadan be fulfilling and blessed for you as in all other Ramadan, insyaAllah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Shorter. Okay. We know it'll be short.
In the appendix, yeah. There's a jungle in between us.
Neurons.
The brain, the front cortex. What is that?
Prefrontal.
Oh, okay.
The prefrontal cortex. Okay, repeat again. Yeah.
Okay.
So, you want to mention
pre.
Wa'il? we start from the beginning and
Yeah,
mention
maybe.
what
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
And the most popular question that we get is oral sex. Okay.
Because they like oral exams and
Oral English, oral Malay.
oral. Yeah. Very funny. Don't
But
forget to buy the book. Nice color, pink.
so bye. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Wait, together it is. After say so bye. 1, 2, 3.